Hey guys, this is Anish, and today we're going to be talking about recycler views. Recycler views are a really powerful tool for displaying things in lists and grids, and this is kind of an example here. So we had a list of school subjects, and we know whether we'd done the homework for it yet. And basically, we were just able to display a nice list of each subject, a checkbox, and an icon. And basically this walkthrough will show how to make this, and it'll also show some really neat features of RecyclerView. So when you think of ways to display things in a list, currently you might be thinking of using a linear layout. Why? Because it's made for displaying things directly above or below one another. But is that really the best option? So you can add views programmatically. For example, you can inflate a layout and then do linear layout dot add and give it the new view, and it'll just add it to the linear layout. So that's a way to do it programmatically. But is it the best option? For example, if you had a chat screen with 300 plus messages, do you really want to load all those items on a screen that's only displaying like less than 10 at a time? Not really. And that's kind of the reason why RecyclerView is such a powerful tool. So what exactly is RecyclerView? Well, first of all, it's like a new and improved list view. So if you've used list view before, some of it will seem a little familiar. However, RecyclerView kind of extends those capabilities in a more powerful manner. So it's made for displaying large sets of data on the screen at once. It allows efficient scrolling by maintaining a small number of views on the screen. So, if you have that 300 chat messages example, if you have less than 10 on the screen, it's really only loading like 10 of those at a time. And every time you scroll up or down, it's reloading previous ones very efficiently. So not all of those are in memory. It's just loading them as on demand. And it allows the data to change at runtime very easily. And this will be talked about more in a bit. So really two layout files are needed. There's the main one that's essentially just a recycler view on the screen. And then you need some sort of row layout. And you actually can have additional ones. So if you wanted different rows to look differently, you can have other types of row layouts. However, you do need at least the main one with the recycler view and the row layout here. And essentially the views are put in the recycler view in the order you want with the data that you want. So we'll talk about more how you do that in a bit, but you basically get to create the recycler view as you want. So how exactly does it work? This will be covered. It'll become much more clear in the code. But essentially, if you have rows like this, let's say this is an image view and this is a text view, you have something called view holders that are there to make basically inflate or instantiate the rows very efficiently. So every time a view appears on the screen, the view holders are essentially what are there to make it populate and display the data fast. So how does it work? Well, each view holder has the corresponding view object. For example, each one has an image view and text view because each row has an image view and text view here. And essentially they're just pointing to that specific view. So if you know anything about runtimes, so find view by ID is actually a slow operation because it has to go linearly through the entire layout and find the corresponding view. However, pointers are constant time, so you can easily access this image view and this text view. So just to reiterate, each row has its own view holder instance, which contains values that point to the views in its respective row. It holds views, hence view holder. So again, each row has a view holder that's essentially pointing to the elements in that row. And again, find view by ID has to search the layout, but pointers are fast. They actually work in constant time. And there's another thing called layout managers, and these are essentially just these affect how the recycler view is displayed. So you can have linear layout where everything is in rows like this, or you can have a grid layout where there's multiple columns as well. And the adapter is where the majority of the code goes. because it is what is responsible for binding the data to the views in the recycler view. So you give it a set of data. In this example, we'll be giving it an array list. And then there are two primary functions, onCreateViewHolder and onBindViewHolder, that are responsible for actually binding the data to each row. And again, this will be covered soon. And if the data changes, you call basically the adapter.notifyDatasetChanged, and it'll just update whatever you need on the screen. So it's very powerful, and you'll be seeing that now. So let's just start with creating a new project. We'll just call it RecyclerView. We'll keep the package name and we'll just save it there. Next, just keep the default settings, and let's go with an empty activity because we'll just have a recycler view there. So sure, main activity is fine. Finish. So here we are in the main activity for our new project. Just because we'll be using certain libraries, we'll just go ahead and add those to the build.gradle file. So here we added the RecyclerView library because we will be needing that obviously for the recycler view. We added card view because that's just preference. We'll be using that as part of each row layout. And then we added constraint view because, well, not constraint view, constraint layout, because it's just a new way to make layouts and it's pretty powerful. So I thought it would be a good idea to use it. So let's go ahead and make the layouts. So we already have activity main. If we go back to our PowerPoint, we'll see that there were essentially two layout files that were needed. There is r.layout.activity main, and this is essentially where just the recycler view goes. So we'll just get rid of this and put a recycler view here. So oh, sorry, I have to sync the Gradle files. So basically, after you add or change this Gradle, you have to sync it, and that's what it was complaining about. So it's currently building it. It'll import the libraries, and there we go. Should be done. So layout, go back here. Oh, sorry, it still says Gradle build running. Oh, okay, yeah, it's just complaining that we didn't finish this. So recycler view, there we go. The width will be match parent, height match parent. And we will need to give it an ID. So in case you forgot what an ID is, it's essentially a way to refer to it in the code later. And we'll just call it recycler view. Okay, there we go. So there we go. So if you go to this, how it looks, we just have a recycler view taking up the screen here. Looks great. Now what was the other layout? It is a row layout. So let's go ahead and create a new layout. New layout resource file, and we'll call it row view. Okay. Now we want to use constraint layout. It created it with a linear layout, so let's just go ahead and change it to a constraint layout. And now we have a constraint layout. Okay. So before we mess with main activity, let's quickly create the objects that represent each individual school subject. So we will create a new Java class and call it school subject. And all this will do is basically be a basic blueprint of each individual school subject. So what does each individual school subject has? Well, it has a string subject name. It has a boolean is homework done, and a integer image resource ID. And then what will the constructor look like? So every time you want to instantiate a school subject, you will just pass in obviously a string subject name, boolean is homework done, and an integer image resource ID. So, let's say we're creating math, we'd pass in math as a subject name. This dot subject name equals subject name. So is homework done? This will basically be a boolean true or false that will determine whether or not we check the checkbox. So is homework done equals is homework done. And the image resource, well, if you remember, r.drawables dot whatever an image file, that is an integer. It is an integer resource that is pointing to a specific drawable file. So that's why it's an integer. So for example, we'd pass in r.math.drawable.math for the math school subject. So this dot image resource ID equals image resource ID. Okay, so that's basically it for the school subject. So now let's set up main activity. So the main activity is what will, well, the onCreate of the main activity is what will run when the application first starts. And this is essentially where we want to, set up the recycler view and give the adapter all the data that it needs to populate the recycler view. So first, let's create the recycler view object that we will be constantly referring to. And, well, we do have a recycler view here already. So, and its ID is just RecyclerView. So let's go ahead and just do r.id.recyclerView. And if you notice, it's complaining because find view by ID returns a view, whereas we need to cast it to RecyclerView for this to be happy. So RecyclerView, and there we go. So now we have the RecyclerView object. And let's go back to the slides quickly. So there's something called a layout manager, which handles, whether we display things as a list or as a grid. In this example, we want to display it as a list, so we'll be using a linear layout manager. And the syntax is RecyclerView.setLayoutManager. So it will be RecyclerView.setLayoutManager, and then you just create a new linear layout manager, and it wants the context, so just give it this. Awesome. So now, we'll be basically giving it an array of the school subject objects that it'll populate the recycler view with. So let's create that array list. So array list school subjects equals new array list. Okay. So now we have the math, science, history, and reading subjects, and we want to instantiate those objects. So first we'll do school subject math equals new school subject. So let's look at the parameters. So the first parameter is the subject name, math. Is homework done? No, we haven't done math homework yet. And oh wait, what will the image resource be? Well, we actually haven't added those to the project yet, so let's quickly do that. So on the desktop, I have these the four icons. To add images to your project, you can just select them and then copy them. So Command C in this case. Go over to your drawables folder and just do Command V. And OK. And there we go. We now have these 4 image resources in our project. So let's just close these tabs. Okay. So now we can refer to those image resources with the integer resource ID. For math, it's drawable.math. Okay. And then we obviously want to add it to the school subjects array, so .add, and we'll just give it math. Okay. Same thing is now for, let's just copy this format for math, science, history, and reading. Okay. So this will be math, science. We have done our science homework, haven't we? Science. And we'll give it the science object. Math, science, history. Sure, we've done our history homework. And history. And then reading. Let's say false. We haven't done reading homework. And then reading. And we will give it the reading object. Oh, we have to change this to history too. Okay, there you go. So now we've created 4 different school subject objects. We've put it in the school subjects array list, and now we have to kind of pass it to the adapter. But first let's create the adapter. So that's just a new class, new Java class. We'll call it school subjects adapter. And the great thing about RecyclerView is that it has a lot of subclasses in it that we can extend to get most of the functionality. So extends RecyclerView.adapter, and if we go back here, adapter, you see it has this like VH. It actually expects you to give it a view holder or the name for the view holder class. So in this case, we'll just call it custom custom view holder. And we actually have to create it. It's complaining that there is no custom view holder class that exists. So we'll go public class custom view holder, and now we can just type it custom view holder. There we go. Now it's happy, and we'll fill in the custom view holder soon. But first, let's fill in the required functions. So as we mentioned, there's the function onCreateViewHolder, onBindViewHolder, and there's also getItemCount. And before we can actually do this, we'll actually have to create the layouts for these rows. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have to create the layout for each row. So let's go to this layout file. As you see right here, it's just a blank, and we have a constraint layout. So if you think about how we want each row to look like, we actually need the constraint layout to be within a card view, because the card view is essentially the main wrapping on the layout. So we'll create a card view. Card view height will be let's say wrap content. Width will be wrap content, and we're just putting it around the constraint layout. So card view. There we go. Actually, so because right now, let's actually format this to look nicer. So reformat code. Okay. So because we set the card view to be wrap content right now, and it's actually like completely blank, let's just set it to be 150 dp for now, so you can actually see it. Okay. Right, the width needs to be match parent. Sorry. There we go. So now you can actually see the card view on the screen there. Okay, and let's just make it. There we go. Okay. So we have a card view, a constraint layout within the card view, and let's just go ahead and drag in some, where is it, sorry, design. Okay, so let's drag in a image view. This will obviously be for the icon. We'll put that right there, and let's just give it the default icon like that. Now what else do we need? We need a text view. So text view is here. Let's place that right there. Now let's zoom in a bit so we can play with the constraint layout a bit. So we can type pan. There we go. So let's say we want this to be aligned with the top of this one, bounded to the side of this one. I want this to be there, and this to be there, and this to be there. We're trying to make this, there we go. Okay. And now we also need a checkbox. This will be, whether we've done the homework or not. So checkbox is right here. Let's just align that there. And then, bind this to the bottom. And there we go. So now let's say we go back here, and now we can change this back to wrap content, just so that it's not, too big. There we go. Now we have a nice little layout here. Maybe we want to make the margin here a little bit bigger, like 16 dp, and we can make this one go there. Okay, so now there's a nice spacing, I think, and this can be our row view. What's very important is that you're setting the IDs properly. So we want to refer to this as image view. Yes. Text view can just be text view, and the checkbox can be checkbox. Okay. So now we've set all the IDs for our row layout. Let's go back to the adapter. Okay. So the first thing first, onCreateViewHolder. So the way this really works is that if we go back to how this looks, these are view holder classes, and each one needs to have an object instance variable that points to a specific corresponding view in that row. So in this case, because we had an image view and a text view, the view holder had an image view and text view. But in our example, where each row has a image view, text view, and checkbox, the view holder also needs to have a so first there'll be an image view, we'll call it icon, text view, actually we'll call this image view, and then checkbox. Okay, and so now at least each custom view holder has these. So before you can actually do anything with the school subject adapter, it has to have a constructor so you can create it in main activity, because over here you have the recycler view. Eventually you have to do recyclerView.set adapter. So in order to do that, you need to be able to inflate this instantiate this adapter, and for that you need a constructor. So public school subject adapter. What all do we need? Well, we will need the context, so we will need that, and then obviously we need the array list of the school subjects. Let's call it school subjects, and then we'll create instance variables to save it. So there'll be a context and array list school subject and school subjects, and then it'll just be this dot context equals context, and this dot school subjects equals school subjects. Let's see what it is complaining about. Oh, sorry, school subject adapter, my bad. Okay, there we go. So now that we've created the constructor, now we can use these onCreate view holder and onBind view holder. So again, when is onCreate view holder called? Well, it's called when this view holder is first being created. And basically, we already have the blueprint for this, what the view holder will look like. We just have to create it and bind each specific instance variable to that view. So obviously find view by ID has to be called somewhere in here. And the way it works is, you don't exactly have to memorize this. This is not something you really should have memorized. It's just something you can always refer to when needed. But you have a layout inflator from parent.getContext.inflate. Now, which layout are we inflating? r.layout.rowView. And it won't be covered in this tutorial. However, you can choose which layout you're going to inflate. So if you had a different row view, you see this view type, you can say if view type equals like 1, do this one, else inflate row view number 2. So you have some flexibility there. Third parameter will be null and then false. And then basically now it expects you to return a custom view holder. So really you'll be inflating a new custom view holder, and you will just give it, actually you're saving this to a view equals that, and you will just give it the view. So obviously now we need a constructor over here. So public custom view holder takes a view, and what are we doing? Well, basically image view will equal view dot find view by ID. Oops. View. So the way this really works is that if you have a view and you say view dot find view by ID, it searches within the children of that view. So if you look at the view that's here, we're inflating this entire layout, which has 3 children, or 4 children actually, or 5. It has the card view, constraint layout, and then it has image view, text view, and checkbox. So we'll be searching within the view in specific. So view dot find view by ID, r.id dot image view will just be image view, and of course we have to cast it. So image view. Likewise for text view equals text view dot find view by ID, r dot find view by ID, r.id dot text view, and then checkbox equals checkbox view.findView by dr.id.checkbox. So what do we do there? Basically, you're instantiating a view using something called a layout inflator. You're instantiating specifically this view, r.layout.rowView, and then we're creating a custom view holder where we're passing in that view, and basically each instance variable, image view, text view, checkbox, is being binded to that specific view in that layout. So now, once the view holder is created and a specific row appears on the screen, now we have to, fill in this layout with the correct data. So if you see, one of the parameters is actually a holder, and the holder is exactly the holder that corresponds to that specific row in that position, because they even tell you the position. So, first what you need to do, you need to really get the data for that row, for that certain position. It starts at 0. So, you have a school subject equals, there's a get, oh wait, no, it'll just be school subjects dot get, give it the position. So let's say this is trying to bind the 0th element. Well, let's get the school subject in the 0th element of the array of data. Okay, it's now a holder. So this is this custom view holder. Oh, look at that. So we have an image view dot set image resource. And what will the image resource be? Well, it's just a school subject dot image resource ID. Easy as that. Holder dot text view dot set text will just be school subject dot subject name, and likewise holder dot what's it called, checkbox dot set checked will just be school subject dot is homework done. Okay, so that's really all there is. Now there's also a third function called get item count that was not really covered, but this is essentially how many different rows the RecyclerView should expect to bind. So it'll just be school subjects dot size, because for every school subject in the array there's one row, so it's just school subjects dot size. That's it. And really now this adapter is done. So if we go back to main activity now, we can actually create the adapter. So school subject adapter equals new school subject adapter. It needs the two parameters, the context, which will just be this, or you can either works get application context, and then just give it the school subjects array. And now we'll pass in school subject adapter, and it should work now. Oh wait, there's a bug here. It's red. Why is it red? Let's see. Okay, type parameter is not within bounds. It should extend. Oh, my bad. This custom view holder has to extend RecyclerView dot view holder. My bad. There we go. Public. There's no default constructor available. Okay, custom view holder. Oh, okay, we have to call super. There we go. And now I have to pass in the view. My bad. There are quite a few issues actually running this code the first time. 4 of them that are clearly visible. First of all, the card views are cut off on the side. Second, these text view and checkbox are overlapping. Third, the checkbox should say is homework done. And fourth, there's not really spacing in between any of these. So like they kind of just look like one massive card. So let's fix that. So first, let's fix the issue where these are overlapping. So really the issue is that the reading and math images are a little bit smaller. And because of a smaller image, it's forcing them like to just overlap, because this is bounded to the top of this one, this is constrained to the bottom of this one, so there's overlapping. So a solution, just make it a bit bigger. There we go. There's a bit more space now. And then in addition, we can constrain this to that and put a margin in between them. So at least now there's like gonna be space between there. Second issue where these not enough space in between these, that's actually fixed by just directly in the row layout. So in the card view, we'll just add a margin to the top, margin top, 8 dp. So now if we go back to how this looks, there's at least a margin. We added a margin top to the card, so now each card will have a margin above it, whereas as opposed to there being nothing, so now it just kind of look like one giant card. That'll fix that. Next issue, how actually they kind of were warning us, but right here, like, null is highlighted and it says avoid passing null. Basically, we needed to pass parent here instead. Parent is actually this, this parameter right here. And the reason that's causing the card views to be cut off is because it's kind of messing with the view hierarchy. And now I won't go too much into detail, but that will fix the issue. And then also we want to make this say homework done. So we'll just go back to the row layout, go to the checkbox, and the text should say homework done. There you go. So now we'll run this. And that should fix everything. I think we'll try it. Should be pretty quick. But there we go, it's installing. Okay, now I think after this I'll quickly cover some things like the notify data set changed, because that's very useful for actually telling the data that's been changed, so you can change the data at runtime. Let's quickly go back here. So now, yeah, there we go, it's been updated. So as you can see, everything looks much better now. There's actually space in between the views, and yeah, there we go. So that looks much better now. There are a few more features I quickly wanted to demonstrate just so you kind of know how they work and that they're there. First, I actually want to make the list scroll off the screen, and then create a toast every time onBindViewHolder is called, just so you can see when it's actually being called. Second, I want to implement an on-click listener, so when you click on a row, it actually disappears. And third, I want to show you quickly Grid View Manager instead. So first, let's just make it actually have a list that's large enough to scroll off the screen. To do that, it will just do a for loop. So int I equals 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. Basically, we're just going to add each of these objects 10 times. So, like, 4 takes up this much room, 10 will actually go off the screen. Okay, so then now we have to go to the school subject adapter. Basically, if you think about how an on-click listener works, if you do button.set on-click listener, you're basically calling it a function that's in the view class. Set on-click listener is actually in the view class, and you can do it for any object. So you can even do like a text view.set on-click listener. So likewise, any place you have a view, you can set an on-click listener. So right here, if we want to know when the view is clicked on, this view actually corresponds to a row, because remember, you're creating a custom view holder for this row. So you do view.set on-click listener, new on-click listener, and to remove the row, what will we do? We will have to do the school subjects, which is an array list, dot remove, and we want to remove the item at the current position that was clicked on. Well, there's a function called get adapter position, and there we go. Now you've removed it from the array list, and if you remember, notify dataset changed actually like updates the list. There we go. So what is this doing? When it's clicked, you remove that certain item from the array and you notify dataset changed. Also, when the item scrolls off the screen, we wanted to like create a toast, as I said earlier. So we'll toast dot make text. Context will be there. The text will be, let's just do on bind view holder, and we'll say that plus position. There you go. So now when onBindViewHolder is called, a toast will appear just showing which position has been binded. And let's quickly run this. So now, if you notice, it actually scrolls off the screen. And as we scroll, you see 6 was inflated or binded. Now 7, 8. But now let's scroll back up. We have to rebind 0. It's rebinding 8, 9, go back up. 10 had to bind, 11 binded, but now it's rebinding what was at the top. So you see, views as they appear are being binded. So if we scroll like way down, you know, it's toasted like slow, but you'll see 10, 11, 12. Okay, it'll keep going. It's a little bit delayed, obviously. Like there's like a queue of toasts waiting to appear, but yeah. Okay, now also when you click on one, you notice it just disappears. That's pretty cool. But now let's make it a little bit more interesting. So actually, recycler views have this thing where instead of saying notify dataset change, which is pretty generic, you can actually say notify item moved, item removed. Well, item changed, but we're going to do item removed. And which position was it? Well, it was get adapter position. And now it's going to be a little bit smarter about the not notifications, animations that appear, and it looks really nice. So now when you click on a view, notice how it animates out. It looks really nice, doesn't it? So, you know, it doesn't just disappear. It'll actually like just have a nice like exit. That looks pretty cool. Now let's do one last thing. Let's make it a grid layout. So instead of linear layout manager, change to grid layout manager. And it expects a second parameter, which is actually a number of columns. So let's run that. And if you imagine a use case of this, it would be something like, let's see, I don't know if you've seen Google Keep, but it has 2 columns and it's a grid layout. So let's look how it looks. Just keep in mind that, you know, obviously we didn't like change the layout to kind of be made for a grid, but this is a grid obviously because you see 2 subjects next to one another, and if you click on one, you see that animation, it just flows nicely. So that's kind of RecyclerView in a nutshell. Very powerful, much more efficient than just doing a regular linear layout or trying to do this by yourself. It's pretty easy to do. There's much more you can do. Maybe a future video will come kind of showing how to do different layout types. So obviously there is a view type parameter that kind of shows that you can have different row types. For example, if you wanted a header to be right here, obviously the header should have a different layout than all the other items underneath it. But for now, these are kind of the basics of RecyclerView. Hope that was useful, and please ask any questions that you have. Thanks.